The human response came faster than Ambassador Kira had thought possible. Within 72 hours of the initial briefing, Earth's unified government had reached a decision that left the galactic diplomatic corps struggling to understand the implications. Ambassador, Admiral Chun announced during their third meeting, Earth accepts emergency consultation status and offers immediate military assistance. We're prepared to deploy a squadron for reconnaissance and potential engagement with your savage tide. Admiral, I appreciate your willingness to help, Kira replied carefully. But perhaps you don't fully understand the scale of this threat. We're discussing an enemy force that has eliminated heavily defended colony worlds protected by thousands of our most advanced ships. Understood, Chun said simply. We're not proposing to replace your defensive fleet. We're suggesting a different approach entirely. Dr. Reeves activated a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. Ambassador, you mentioned that your scout ships investigate these disappearances by approaching the affected systems and attempting detailed scans before the enemy detects them. This is a perfectly reasonable strategy for species that evolved in stable environments. However, continued General Torres, predators don't announce themselves before attacking. If this savage tide is genuinely predatory rather than simply territorial, your scouts are essentially ringing dinner bells. Ambassador Kira's primary and secondary hearts both skipped. Are you suggesting these disappearances are the result of some form of galactic predator? We're suggesting, Admiral Chun replied, that you stop thinking like prey. The concept was so foreign to galactic military doctrine that Ambassador Kira required several minutes to process it. Every spacefaring civilization approached unknown threats with caution, preparation, and defensive positioning. The idea of actively seeking out a superior enemy force seemed like elaborate suicide. What exactly are you proposing? She finally asked. We send in bait, Chun answered, but bait with very sharp teeth. 3 weeks later, Admiral Zephyx watched the human ships arrive at the Galactic Defense Station with mounting confusion. She had expected primitive vessels, crude weapons, and obvious technological limitations. What translated into the system challenged every assumption about Deathworld capabilities. The human squadron consisted of 5 ships, each roughly the size of a Krillian heavy cruiser but built with a design philosophy unlike anything in the galactic database. Where council ships were sleek and elegant, these vessels appeared deliberately rough and angular. Where galactic technology emphasized efficiency and refinement, human engineering seemed focused on durability and raw power. Incoming transmission. From the lead human vessel, announced the communications officer. This is Colonel Sarah Martinez, commanding the Earth Defense Force Squadron. Nightfall, came the crisp voice through the translator. Requesting permission to dock for final briefing before departure. Permission granted, Colonel, Admiral Zephyx replied. Welcome to Defense Station Alpha. An hour later, Admiral Zephyx found herself in another meeting that defied her understanding of how military operations should work. The 5 humans who materialized in her briefing room moved with a predatory grace that made every other species present instinctively step back. Their eyes constantly scanned the environment, cataloging exits, potential weapons, and tactical positions with unsettling efficiency. Colonel Martinez was a compact woman whose calm demeanor somehow made her more intimidating than General Corax's obvious aggression. Her 4 squadron commanders displayed the same alert intensity, creating an atmosphere of barely contained violence that had never before existed in a council military briefing. Colonel, I've reviewed your mission proposal, Admiral Zephyx began, and I must express serious concerns about the risks involved. Admiral, risk is relative, Martinez replied. Your reconnaissance approach minimizes immediate danger, but maximizes long-term threat by allowing the enemy to maintain initiative. Our approach accepts short-term risk to gain intelligence and tactical advantage. Commander Vex leaned forward with obvious skepticism. Colonel, with respect, you're proposing to take 5 primitive ships against an enemy that has destroyed entire systems defended by thousands of advanced vessels. Commander, Martinez's voice carried an edge that made Vex's mandibles snap shut involuntarily. Primitive is also relative. Your ships are designed for exploration, trade, and defensive warfare between civilized species operating under recognized rules of engagement. Our ships are designed to hunt things that want to kill us. She activated her own holographic display, showing detailed schematics of the human vessels. These ships don't look like yours because they weren't built for the same purpose. Every system, every weapon, every structural element was designed by species that learned warfare against an environment that never stopped trying to murder us. The technical specifications made Admiral Zefix's elegant Altarian sensibilities recoil. Human ships carried redundant systems for every critical function, armor that seemed excessive for their technological level, and weapons that appeared designed for close-range combat rather than the precise, long-distance engagements favored by galactic military doctrine. Your energy shielding is impressive, observed Dr. Helion, studying the data with scientific curiosity, but your primary weapons appear to be kinetic rather than energy-based. That seems primitive. Doctor, replied Commander Jackson, Martinez's weapons specialist, rocks don't care about your energy shields. They don't run out of power, can't be hacked, and work just fine in any environment. Sometimes the old ways work because they never stopped working. Admiral Zefix realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, a military philosophy developed by species that had never known safety. Every Council civilization had reached space by conquering their environment through technology and cooperation. Humans had reached space by learning to kill anything that threatened them. Colonel, assuming your squadron successfully makes contact with this enemy force, she said, what's your extraction plan? Martinez smiled, and the expression made Admiral Zefix's secondary heart skip again. Admiral, extraction implies we're planning to run away. You're not planning to engage an enemy of unknown capabilities with 5 ships? Admiral, Martinez replied quietly, we're planning to find out what killed your colonies. Once we know what we're hunting, we'll kill it. The casual certainty in her voice sent ripples of unease through the assembled council representatives. These humans weren't discussing a reconnaissance mission. They were planning a hunting expedition. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations have been preparing defenses against this threat for months. General Corax growled. You believe 5 primitive ships can succeed where our combined fleets might fail? General, Commander Torres answered, your combined fleets are designed to fight other fleets. We don't know what the Savage Tide actually is, but the pattern suggests something that consumes rather than conquers. Our ships are designed to fight things that eat other things. The briefing continued for 2 more hours, but Admiral Zefix found her attention, returning repeatedly to the fundamental disconnect between human military thinking and galactic norms. Where Council species sought to minimize casualties and preserve resources, humans seemed to view acceptable losses as an operational parameter. Where galactic doctrine emphasized overwhelming force and technological superiority, human strategy focused on adaptability and aggressive initiative. Most disturbing of all was the growing realization that these humans might be right. If the Savage Tide truly represented some form of galactic predator, then sending more prey species scouts would only provide more victims. Perhaps the galaxy needed hunters. 40-8 hours later, the human squadron departed for the Edge territories, their crude ships disappearing into hyperspace with none of the elegant grace displayed by Council vessels. Admiral Zefix watched them go with a mixture of hope and dread, uncertain whether she had just witnessed the galaxy's salvation or its final mistake. The human ships traveled through hyperspace, like apex predators stalking through tall grass, silent, patient, and utterly focused on their prey. Unlike Council ships that announced their presence with active sensors and communication arrays, the human vessels moved through space as if they belonged to the darkness between stars. Contact in 30 minutes, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim from the Nightfall sensor station. Target system shows the same signature as previous Savage Tide attacks, complete. Electromagnetic silence where a thriving colony should be. Broadcasting. Colonel Martinez studied the tactical display with the cold focus of a career soldier who had learned warfare in the Belt Wars, where human settlements had battled for resources against both hostile environments and each other. Those conflicts had taught hard lessons about survival against superior forces, lessons that the galaxy's Paradise World civilizations had never needed to learn. All ships, full stealth protocols, she ordered. Passive sensors only. We're going in dark. The 5 human ships crossed into the devastated system like ghosts. Their stealth systems, powered by technology the Council had dismissed as primitive. Human engineers had never developed elegant energy shields or sophisticated beam weapons because Earth's environment. Admiral Zephyx stood before the massive viewing window of the Galactic Council's primary defense station, watching the stars with growing unease. The elegant Altarian's blue-tinged skin seemed to shimmer with nervous energy as reports flooded in from across the galaxy's outer rim. Territories. Another mining colony has gone. Silent, reported Commander Vex, a stocky Krillian whose 4 arms moved rapidly across his datapad. And that makes 17 settlements in the past 2 cycles. The Savage Tide continues to advance. The Savage Tide, even thinking the name made Zephix's secondary heart skip a beat? For 3 standard years, this mysterious force had been sweeping through the galaxy's edge territories, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. No distress calls, no survivors, no trace of what happened to entire worlds. Just empty space where thriving colonies once existed. Have our scouts gathered any new intelligence? Zephyx asked, though she already knew the answer. Every reconnaissance mission sent to investigate the disappearances had vanished as completely as the colonies themselves. Nothing concrete, Admiral, Vex replied, his mandibles clicking with frustration. Long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures moving through those sectors, but whenever our ships get close enough for detailed scans. He made a gesture that needed no translation across species. The Council had been in emergency session for weeks, debating their response. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations, the technological Altarians, the militaristic Krillians, the diplomatic Thesians, and dozens of other species, had pooled their resources to create the largest defense fleet in recorded history. Nearly 10,000 ships, representing the pinnacle of galactic military might, now patrolled the inner systems, yet despite their overwhelming numbers and advanced technology, fear clung to every deck and every crew. The enemy remained completely unknown. No communication attempts had succeeded. No captured technology provided clues about their origins or capabilities. They were fighting shadows that devoured everything in their path. Admiral. Incoming priority transmission from the Council chambers, announced the communications officer. A nervous Thesian whose normally melodious voice cracked with stress. They're calling for your immediate presence. Zephix's elongated fingers tapped against the viewing window as she composed herself. As the fleet's commanding officer, she carried the weight of 57 civilizations on her shoulders. The next few hours might determine whether galactic civilizations survived or joined the growing list of the disappeared. The Council chamber buzzed with tense energy as representatives from across the galaxy gathered in emergency session. Holographic displays showed the steadily shrinking map of controlled space, red zones marking where the Savage Tide had passed. At the current rate of expansion, they had perhaps 6 months before the enemy reached the core worlds. Our defensive preparations are as complete as they can be, Zephyx reported to the assembled delegates. All major systems have been fortified. Our combined fleet represents the largest military force in galactic history. But I must be honest, without knowing what we're facing, our chances remain uncertain. High Counselor Thyrene. The elderly Thesian leader, whose silver hair marked centuries of wisdom, leaned forward with troubled eyes. There must be something else we can try? Some ally we haven't contacted. Some technology we haven't considered. Respectfully, Counselor. We've exhausted every option, replied General Corax. The grizzled Krillian military commander whose battle scars spoke of countless campaigns. Every member species has contributed their best ships and finest warriors. Our weapon systems incorporate the most advanced technology from all our civilizations. If this force isn't enough, he didn't need to finish the sentence. The implications hung heavy in the chamber's recycled air. Wait, interrupted Dr. Helion, the Altarian science minister whose brilliant blue eyes suddenly lit with inspiration. There is one possibility we haven't explored. The database mentions a species from the Outer Rim that was recently granted preliminary contact status. They're listed as having potential military capabilities, though they haven't officially joined the galactic community. You're referring to the inhabitants of the third planet in the Sol system, confirmed Counselor Thyrene, consulting her datapad. The preliminary reports classified their world as, what was the term? A death world, Dr. Helion replied quietly. Causing a ripple of unease through the chamber, most species in the galaxy evolved on worlds that galactic standards considered paradise mild climates. Gentle gravity, abundant resources, and minimal natural threats. Death worlds represented the opposite extreme, planets so hostile that life itself became a constant battle for survival. The theory suggested that species developing under such brutal conditions might possess unusual capabilities, but it remained largely theoretical since few Deathworld species had been discovered. Their preliminary assessment mentioned unusually high aggression levels and adaptive capabilities. Dr. Helion continued, reading from her records. However, their technology appears primitive by our standards. They've only recently achieved basic spaceflight, and their weapon systems are crude. Crude weapons won't help against an enemy that devours entire star systems. General Corax growled dismissively. What could a primitive species possibly offer that our advanced civilizations cannot provide? Perhaps, suggested Counselor Thyrene thoughtfully. The question isn't what they can provide, but what they might think of that we haven't. Desperate times call for unconventional solutions. Admiral Zephix found herself nodding slowly. The preliminary contact protocols are still in effect, but given the emergency circumstances, we could invoke emergency consultation rights. At worst, we gain nothing. At best, we discover something our combined wisdom missed, finished Dr. Helion. I recommend we send an immediate diplomatic mission to Sol 3, also known to its inhabitants as Earth. The debate continued for another hour, but the conclusion became inevitable. Facing extinction, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations would turn to a primitive Deathworld species for help. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. 3 days later, the diplomatic vessel Harmony's voice translated into the Sol system. Its sleek Theshan design a stark contrast to the rough asteroid belt and the bright yellow star at the system's heart. Ambassador Kira, a seasoned Theshan diplomat with decades of first contact experience, reviewed the briefing materials one final time as they approached the third planet. Earth appeared as a swirling mix of blue oceans and white clouds, with brown and green continents visible through the atmospheric layers. It looked deceptively peaceful from orbit, giving little hint of the violent forces that had shaped its evolution. The preliminary survey had documented massive storms, seismic activity, temperature extremes, and atmospheric conditions that would kill most galactic species within minutes. Approaching Earth orbital space, announced the pilot, a young Altarian whose expertise in xenonavigation made him ideal for first contact missions. I'm detecting numerous artificial satellites and what appear to be permanent orbital installations. Their technology is definitely primitive, but they've achieved a surprising level of space infrastructure for such a young species. Incoming transmission. Ambassador, reported the communications officer. Multiple sources, actually. They appear to have detected our approach and are attempting to establish contact using various frequency ranges and communication protocols. Ambassador Kara straightened her formal robes, prepared for the delicate task ahead. First contact required careful balance, demonstrating galactic civilization's peaceful intentions, while conveying the urgent need for assistance. The fate of 67 species might depend on the next few hours. Open a channel using their most sophisticated communication protocol, she ordered. Begin standard first contact procedures with modifications for emergency consultation status. As the connection established, Ambassador Kara found herself looking at a face unlike any in the galactic database. The human's features were sharper than most species, with small eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Their skin was darker than expected, and their expression carried an intensity that made the ambassador instinctively step back. Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of United Earth Defense Command. The human's voice carried through the translator with crisp authority. You have entered Earth orbital space without authorization. State your intentions immediately. The directness surprised Ambassador Kira. Most species approached first contact with wonder and careful curiosity. This human displayed no amazement at meeting an alien civilization, no hesitation in making demands of a clearly superior technology. Just hard, professional evaluation of a potential threat? Greetings, Admiral Chun, Kara replied, following diplomatic protocols. I am Ambassador Kira of the Galactic Council. We come seeking emergency consultation with your species regarding a threat to galactic security. Under preliminary contact protocols, we formally request permission to present our situation to your leadership. Admiral Chun's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes sharpened. Emergency consultation regarding a galactic threat. How long do we have to decide? The question caught Ambassador Kara off guard. Most species would ask about the nature of the threat. The battle lasted 14 hours and redefined everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Colonel Martinez watched her tactical display as the wounded matriarch thrashed through space, her massive form trailing luminescent biological matter from dozens of kinetic impacts. The creature's offspring circled desperately, their coordinated hunting patterns dissolved into confusion without their leader's guidance. Stalker to nightfall, came Commander Zhao's voice over the comm. I've got a clear shot at what looks like a major nerve cluster. Requesting permission to engage. Negative, Martinez replied, studying the sensor data. We need to understand their reproduction cycle first. How many more of these things might be out there? This was what separated human military thinking from galactic norms. Where council species focused on immediate tactical victory, humans instinctively thought in terms of total ecosystem management. You didn't just kill the predator threatening your settlement, you eliminated the entire pack and made sure it couldn't return. Colonel, reported Lieutenant Commander Kim from sensors. I'm detecting massive bioelectric pulses from the matriarch. I think it's calling for something. Long-range communications, Martinez nodded grimly. She's calling the rest of her species. The response came from the deep void between galaxies, a harmonic frequency that resonated through subspace like the call of cosmic leviathans. The human crews felt it in their bones, a sound that spoke of vast intelligences moving through the darkness of intergalactic space. Multiple contacts, Kim announced, her voice tight with controlled fear. At least a dozen signatures, all massive, approaching from outside the galaxy. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. The matriarch's death scream when she finally succumbed to the kinetic barrage was answered by her approaching kin, and Martinez realized the implications immediately. The galaxy wasn't facing a single rogue predator, it was in the path of an entire species migration. All ships, collect biological samples and full sensor scans, she ordered. We need to understand these things completely before the rest of them arrive. Colonel, Commander Jackson's voice carried barely controlled urgency. Shouldn't we be running? Those incoming signatures make this one look small. Commander, Martinez replied with deadly calm, we're not here to run. We're here to learn how to kill them all. The human squadron worked with desperate efficiency, their ship's crude but effective sensors mapping the dead. Matriarch's biology while automated systems collected tissue samples. What they discovered challenged everything the galactic scientific community thought they knew about life in the universe. They're not from this galaxy? Dr. Sarah Chun reported from the Nightfall Science Station. The isotope ratios are all wrong. This is a deep space species, probably nomadic, following energy trails between galactic clusters. How many? Martinez asked. Based on the harmonic frequencies we detected, possibly hundreds. Maybe thousands. They're following ancient migration routes through the cosmic web, feeding on any technological signatures they encounter. The implications were staggering. The galaxy wasn't dealing with an invasion, it was dealing with a natural disaster on a cosmic scale. These creatures were no more malevolent than a swarm of locusts. But they would strip the galaxy of all technological civilization just as efficiently. "Colonel," came Admiral Zefix's voice over the long-range comm, "our sensors have detected the incoming contacts. The Council is ordering immediate evacuation of all Edge territories. We need your squadron to return immediately for defensive preparations." "Negative, Admiral," Martinez replied. "Defensive positions won't stop this. You can't build walls high enough to keep out a natural disaster." "Colonel, that's a direct order from the Galactic Council." "Admiral," Martinez's voice carried the steel of someone who had never learned to accept impossible odds. "With respect, the Galactic Council doesn't understand what we're dealing with here. These things aren't conquerors. They're a force of nature. And the only way to deal with a force of nature is to redirect it." The silence that followed was filled with the background hum of human ships preparing for the impossible. 5 crude vessels, representing a species that had barely achieved interstellar flight, were about to attempt something that the galaxy's combined civilizations couldn't comprehend. "What are you planning?" Zefix finally asked. "We're going to teach them to hunt somewhere else." Martinez replied simply. The plan that emerged over the next 4 hours would have been rejected as insanity by any Council military commander. It relied on assumptions about alien psychology that couldn't be verified, used tactics that violated every principle of sound military doctrine, and required a level of risk. Acceptance that Paradise World species simply couldn't understand, but it was the kind of plan that could only come from predators who had learned to survive by turning their environment's hostility against itself. The matriarch's bioelectric signature was essentially a migration beacon, Dr. Chin explained as the human squadron prepared for the arriving entities. These things follow energy trails across intergalactic space, feeding on anything that produces the right kind of electromagnetic signature. "So we give them a bigger signature to follow," Martinez concluded. "Something more attractive than galactic civilization?" The humans had identified the galaxy's largest natural energy source, a massive pulsar system located far from any inhabited worlds. Its regular emissions already attracted cosmic phenomena from across the local galactic group. With the right modifications, it could become an irresistible lure for creatures that fed on electromagnetic energy. "Colonel, this plan requires us to approach within the pulsar's lethal radiation zone," Commander Torres pointed out. "Our ships aren't designed for that level of exposure." "Commander," Martinez replied, "our ships were designed by people who lived their entire evolution on a planet trying to kill them. We'll figure it out." The approaching entities arrived like a force of cosmic nature made manifest. Dozens of massive bioelectric forms emerged from the void between galaxies, their alien geometries defying easy description. Each creature was unique, shaped by millions of years of evolution in the harsh environment of intergalactic space, but all shared the same terrible hunger for the energy signatures of technological civilization. They moved through space with predatory grace, following the bioelectric trail left by their dead matriarch. Behind them, long-range sensors detected hundreds more, a migration that had been traveling for millennia between the galaxy clusters. "Here they come," whispered Commander Zhao as the lead entities entered the galaxy's outer rim. The human squadron was already in position near the pulsar system. Their ship's crude radiation shielding pushed far beyond design specifications. Martinez watched her engineering readouts climb into red zones as exotic particles hammered their hulls. But human engineering had never relied on elegant solutions. When sophisticated systems failed, you used brute force and redundant backups, beginning electromagnetic enhancement, reported Commander Kim as the Nightfall's modified transmitters began broadcasting directly into the pulsar's magnetic field. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The pulsar's already massive energy output amplified exponentially, its regular emissions becoming an electromagnetic beacon visible across half the galaxy. To creatures that fed on such energy, it must have appeared like a banquet table set for gods. "They're responding," Kim announced as the lead entities changed course. Their massive forms turning toward the enhanced pulsar like flowers following the sun. Bioelectric activity is increasing. They're attracted to the enhanced signal. One by one, the cosmic leviathans followed their instincts toward the irresistible energy source. They approached the pulsar system with the same patient hunger they had shown toward galactic colonies. Their alien metabolisms, already anticipating the feast ahead, what they found was death, the pulsar's enhanced magnetic field, amplified beyond natural limits by human technology, trapped the approaching entities like insects in amber. Their bioelectric systems, evolved to absorb and process electromagnetic energy, became overloaded conduits for forces beyond their ability to handle. "It's working," breathed Commander Torres as the first entities began to convulse in the pulsar's enhanced field. "They can't regulate the energy input? Their own feeding mechanism is killing them." Martinez watched dozens of cosmic predators die in the space of minutes, their massive forms consumed by the very energy they had evolved to hunt. It was elegant in its brutality, using the creature's own nature against them with surgical precision. "Long-range sensors show the rest of the migration changing course," Kim reported. "They're avoiding the pulsar system entirely now. The enhanced electromagnetic signature is too strong. They're moving toward the next galaxy in their migration. Root, the threat that had terrorized the galactic community for months, was diverted by 5 crewed ships and a plan that relied on turning natural forces against themselves. The cosmic leviathans continued their ancient migration, but now they would feed elsewhere, leaving the galaxy to develop in peace. "Nightfall to Defense Station Alpha," Martinez announced over the long-range comm. "Mission accomplished. The savage tide has been permanently diverted. Galaxy is secure." The silence that followed lasted nearly 30 seconds before Admiral